man.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable. Apparently, the report is that a commuter jet had some trouble that crashed into the... we've heard reports that it's both the southern tower and the northern tower. It looks to me to be the southern tower is on fire. The top 15 to 20 floors look like they're on fire. There is a hole in the size of the World Trade Center. It's massive. It's
Did you just see that on your television?
Oh, my God.
There's been a huge explosion.
There's been a huge explosion now.
Oh, yeah.
Did that just happen?
Yes, just right now. A massive explosion. It looked like from the other tower.
Did that happen from the other tower?
That was about a 200-foot ball of fire that came out of it.
Yeah, it was just now.
And that is on the other tower.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
A little further down.
Go to help the victims and their families and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence. May God bless the victims, their families, and America. Thank you very much.
Clearly a shaken President Bush, jettisoning what were intended to be his remarks on education. Perhaps a little more education worldwide would prevent this kind of thing in the future. But we are going to be looking at an enormous death toll. 50,000 people work in those two buildings. They have been slammed into by airplanes. You're looking at the footage of one of the planes coming in earlier. This is the second plane, a jet aircraft hitting the World Trade Center about 2 minutes after 9. Perhaps 5 minutes after 9 this morning. Rita Cosby is on the phone with us, and Rita, I understand you have a lot of new information.
Yeah, John, I have just been told from a U.S. law enforcement official that they are saying it is evident that this is a terrorist-related attack, and among the key targets, key people that they're looking at is Osama bin Laden. It was just last Friday that the U.S. State Department put out a worldwide caution to American citizens traveling abroad and also to U.S. government facilities, and they said that terrorism knows no limits, whether it's on U.S. soil or outside. So they're certainly looking at that as a possibility. What I'm also hearing from my officials at FAA, at the Federal Aviation Administration, is that they believe the first plane may have been an American Airlines plane, a commercial jet, either a 737 or 757, and that it was a hijacked plane. This is what they believe. They're still trying to get this verified, but they did get some reports that there was an American Airlines plane that was hijacked en route from Boston to Los Angeles this morning. And they're saying that there is a strong possibility that that first plane that crashed into one of the towers, which does appear to be commercial, and looking at the video, they're saying appears to be either a 737 or 757, that apparently might have been the hijacked plane. In terms of what the second plane is, they said that does appear, as you've been reporting, John, to be a jet plane, probably a 737, twin-engine jet airplane. And those are the two things that are being looked at. They said at this point there was no direct threat that they were aware of as any specific threat in terms of targeting the Twin Towers there in New York, but that they did have specific threats against Americans and American facilities around the world, and that's why they issued that worldwide caution. We also know that the FBI Rapid Response Team has been deployed. It is en route. Several FBI agents are already on the scene there at the Twin Towers, but they are definitely looking at this as a terrorist-related act, looking at this point not knowing who is behind it, but looking at the strong possibility that it may be Osama bin Laden, the mastermind behind the East African embassy bombings several years ago. Back to you, John.
All right, Rita Cosby, thanks very much. I want to bring into the conversation William Daly. Bill, I know that Osama bin Laden likes airplanes, and again, we are not attributing this act to his organization, but he was implicated in a plot to blow up something like 13 airliners in 13 days, or 8 in 8 days. That back in the Philippines, back in the 1980s, I believe.
Exactly.
Airplanes have been his terrorist weapon of choice in the past.
They have, because they hold for someone like a bin Laden or other terrorists. The fact that you could take a plane and within just the number of people on the plane commit such a horrendous act at one time makes an impact to the world. Combine that with what we see in front of our eyes today at the World Trade Center, and you certainly conjure up the worst possible scenario that certainly law enforcement could think of what a terrorist might do. before we get on to, possibly bin Laden, there are certainly other terrorist groups around the world that would like to do things like this. The question would be who might be able to actually carry out such an incident, whether by sheer manpower, training, or some other device. So although he's certainly our poster boy for, literally, for terrorism worldwide, there are other groups out there that certainly have also ill intent against the United States. But what we see before us today is, as I mentioned before, is something that in planning scenarios gets almost into the catastrophic, where it's to prevent something like this from happening. Planes fly by, John, as you may know, and I know, having traveled in and out of the city, come up and down the East River by the hundreds each day, by the thousands each week, and passing by the Trade Center.
At rooftop level.
You look down and you see the antenna, you see the windows. So this is something that even on a bad day, they fly up and down that route. Today was a perfectly clear day in New York.
Even if some air traffic controllers saw those airplanes, and certainly they would have been in view of air traffic control, it might not have looked all that unusual.
The first plane, which from my appearance, I saw it over Fifth Avenue heading south when I was coming to work, appeared to be a 737, or as I said, a smaller Airbus. That could fit with what Rita just reported, that her sources are saying that perhaps it was a plane hijacked from Boston, which obviously is north, that is a used air route down through Manhattan before planes make a left into LaGuardia. So clearly, perhaps there may not have been an indication that something was wrong at that time.
I just want to remind our viewers that the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange have not opened for the day for obvious reasons. This catastrophic terrorist attack on the World Trade Center right there in the Wall Street area. The two markets have not opened for the day. No word yet on when they will open, but clearly, given this kind of turmoil, you don't want to throw the financial markets into a complete panic. John Fund from the Wall Street Journal is on the phone with us. John, were you in the area when the planes hit?
I was across the street in my office building.
What did you see? What did you hear?
I heard an incredible sonic boom, and looked up, and there were already much smoke and flames pouring out of the building. And about 15 minutes later, of course, a second sonic boom, which of course would have been the second tower and the second plane.
What about injuries, John?
Well,
can you tell us?
The most terrible and heartrending thing about this is, about 15 minutes ago, bodies started dropping from the top floors of the tower closest to the highway, about at least 5 or 6, and it was absolutely terrible. Obviously, they had two choices: to be burned in flames or to leap and end it all. It was quite tragic.
So these are people who apparently survived the initial explosion and fire and then found themselves engulfed in smoke.
Yes, and they obviously had no alternatives at that point.
John, I guess you just heard the explosions. You didn't get a chance to see the planes involved.
No, I did not, but I looked up immediately afterwards, and of course the flames were everywhere. There's an enormous jagged hole in the first tower. The second hole in the second tower is much less extensive and much less dramatic, but there's flames out of that too. Flames burst in the parking lot across the street from the World Trade Center because of debris that has fallen down, and of course there's complete pandemonium here. And every building in the neighborhood is being evacuated or has been evacuated. Yeah, that's the prudent thing to do, certainly. When we are looking at video of the second plane hitting the World Trade Center, when we saw it happen on live television, as we were talking about what at that point were only rumors of a plane hitting the first tower, then that second one came into view, and it became pretty clear what's going on here. Bill Daly, well, let me bring into the conversation David Asman, my colleague.
Yes, John Scott,
David, what can you tell us?
I just want to give you some late-breaking information. Perhaps one of the things that is of greatest fear is that there is yet another terrorist attack since those two plane crashes happened within 20 minutes of each other. Well, all of Manhattan has been sealed off. This is probably unprecedented. Of course, all of this is unprecedented in this dastardly occasion, but Manhattan has been sealed off. The Hudson River bridges and the tunnels have been sealed. Clearly, there is an attempt.
At Richmond Unsecure Line, how may I help you?
Colin Coggins, Boston Center Military.
Yes, sir.
Third aircraft, Delta 1989.
Okay, give me
Delta 1989.
Okay, type aircraft?
Type aircraft?
Yes, sir.
Code? Can I give you a code?
Yes, give me the code.
1304, presently due south of Cleveland.
Okay, presently due south of Cleveland.
Heading westbound, destination Las Vegas.
Heading westbound, destination Las Vegas.
And is this one a hijack, sir?
We believe it is.
You believe it is?
Are they going to squawk hijack?
I don't know. I don't know. It's just squawking 1304 now if you want to try to track him up.
Okay,
Any type aircraft is what, sir?
Yeah, can you give me a type aircraft on that Delta? Delta 1989, I think he's on there. 767.
767
And altitude?
Yes, please.
350.
350. Okay, copy that.
And where did he take off out of, sir?
Took off out of Boston.
Boston?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll try to get you a tail number on that if you want to get someone up there.
All right, copy that. Do you have any chance to know souls on board?
No, we don't have that information.
You don't have any of that?
There he is.
Copy that.
Delta.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Do you want me to
There
hurry
I am.
up? I'm going to make
Bye.
a
We're going to try to get you a tail number.
Okay, thanks.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Wonder what reaction happens next. Let's find out from a former special agent of the FBI. This is Joseph Contamessa, New York Special Operations. He's joining us by telephone now. Joseph, how do you proceed from here?
Well, clearly, when this particular tragedy and criminal act became clear, the FBI, as well as all of the other national security resources, are going to be pulled immediately to identify, is there any other immediate threat? Right now, I think the city is probably taking its best effort now to do a lockdown of sorts. If the intention of these terrorists is clearly to disrupt the American public, well, they have, in fact, succeeded.
Yeah, clearly, a lot of people are terrified. There are going to be scores, perhaps hundreds of dead in those two buildings, to say nothing of the people who may have been on board one of the airliners. Again, one report is that a hijacked airliner, the FBI is looking at a report of a hijacked airliner that may have been the first one to slam into the North Tower of the World Trade Center a couple of minutes before 9 this morning. Agent Contamessa, what about the airspace? Are there plans in place in a situation like this? Can the federal government simply shut down the airspace and keep all...
Indy Center.
Indianapolis Center, reference Delta 89. Do you know any information about that aircraft? I wanted to give you a heads up. This is another hijack aircraft. Boston to Las Vegas. He's on a mode 3 of 1304. We do have contact via...
And what was the number again? Delta
89. It's a 767 out of Boston heading to Vegas, and he's on a mode 3 of 1304. I have an exact lat long if you need it.
Go ahead.
Lat long.
Get Delta 89 quick. Go ahead.
4121 north. 08215 west.
Okay.
And just to give you a heads up, that's all we have right now, but he is confirmed hijacked.
Okay, we're not showing him in our system at this point. You are tracking him, you say?
We have him on the radar, sir, but he is headed your way.
He is headed our way.
Delta 89.
Okay. Off Boston to LAS, right?
LAX.
LAX?
I've got Vegas, sir, whatever Vegas is.
Oh, LAS, okay. Las Vegas. Okay, because we're not showing him in the system anywhere.
Okay, he's on a, do you have like mode 3 capability or anything?
He's on a 1304 code?
Correct.
Okay, we'll bring that up.
All right, sir.
Okay, thanks.
We got the loose on?
Joining us from Fox Central, David, what do you have?
John, we are hearing right now of another explosion that has taken place at the Pentagon. We have the heart of the financial district of America being attacked. Now we understand that there is an explosion, there has been an explosion in the Pentagon, the heart of the military command center of the United States of America, John. It can't get much worse than this. Let's hope.
Let's hope. David Asman. That would be right next to Interstate 395, so that report, the Pentagon is next to I-395, one of the main commuter highways in and out of Washington, D.C. So, David, that would fit in with this report that we had earlier.
We must, as we've said before, not only have we not heard that a city is under a lockdown, but we must say we've seen schools under siege. We must say now that we are a nation under siege. Right now, we are a nation under siege. There is a terrorist attack, as you can see, at the heart of the financial capital of the world, and now one at the heart of the military command center of the United States.
Team in military, Dickman.
Cleveland Center, Huntress ID. We are obviously having a pretty bad situation going on with aircraft. I wanted to give you a heads up.
Did they get into the block? Hold on, please. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so you don't know who's the one. What's the third? Okay, what's the third one? The third aircraft. You guys don't know who.
We believed it was Delta 1989. However, when we asked him to respond to any cars to land to Cleveland, he said he would. So, therefore, I don't know if.
And that's the one by.
I don't know if he's a hijack or not. I really don't know.
Okay, well,
I can't confirm that he is.
Okay, do you remember when we were talking about the aircraft by? Do you guys have any idea who that aircraft was by?
By the White House?
Yeah.
We had thought for some reason to believe it was American 11. I don't know if we heard that from somebody else that they had a visual on him that was American Airlines or what. We just don't know. So we don't know which aircraft that was. So we have 3 call signs. We don't know who the third call sign is yet. So we have 2 aircraft in the towers and 1 in the Pentagon, and we don't know what that third call sign was.
You don't know what the third call sign was?
No, we originally thought Delta 1989 was it, but now we have a third. That means there's possibly 4 aircraft. Are you still tracking Delta 1989?
Yes, sir, we still are.
And is he descending into Cleveland? Appear to be?
Right now, no. He's at 28,000 feet, 396 knots, still squawking his code.
Still squawking?
Yeah, it looks like he's by Toledo.
By Toledo, so it doesn't look like he's landing.
No.
Okay.
No, he's at 27,000 feet.
He's at 27?
Yeah.
Oh, then he is.
Sir?
Yes.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Where would he be right now if he was going to be landed in Cleveland? Would he be descended?
He would be descended now.
He would be descended and speed would be slowing.
Speed would be slowing.
Well, it looks like he's not going to go there.
It doesn't look like he's going to Cleveland.
Nope. Okay. Yep.
And go to a safe place.
Yeah, Brian Wilson, the Capitol is being evacuated, we're told, and clearly that shot that we have on our screen now, this is the Pentagon just across the river from Washington, D.C. You got to believe that it has happened again. Another large airliner, perhaps hijacked, perhaps part of some widespread plan, apparently slamming into at least the area around the Pentagon, along with the World Trade Center in Manhattan, the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in Manhattan. The Sears Tower in Chicago is being evacuated. Clearly, authorities all over the country are trying to be prudent in this unbelievable catastrophe. 2 towers of the World Trade Center, 50,000 people who work in those buildings on fire, the fire out of control. Firefighters are going to take days, perhaps, to get this under control, but the Twin Towers on fire as after being slammed into by 2 jetliners earlier this morning. Bill Daly, let me bring you into the conversation. Actually, yeah. Bill, let me interrupt for just a second. Molly Falconer has some updated information for us. Molly? Molly Falconer, are you with us? All right, Bill Daly, let me go back to you for a minute. Clearly a coordinated strike. My heart is pounding. I'm sure yours is as well. What does the FBI do at this point? What does the nation's military do?
Well, certainly the nation's military will be put on alert. This is no doubt about it. Is that, you know, when in the gaming of looking at potential terrorist events, it's always the concern, as David Asman mentioned earlier, that there'll be some type of diversionary incident, and there'll be several others. And I think clearly this is what we're seeing here. The concern is that when a terrorist strikes like this, is that they're going to want to do as much as they can, as quick as they can, because before you know it, there'll be everything will be locked down, as David said, and we will be on a high state of alert. So their chance of doing something more anytime soon will be will be nil. The opportunity to do that. Also, just speaking from personal perspective, having worked down in the area of the World Trade Center, having been down there as recently as yesterday, I can tell you that logistically, to get people in and out of there, people who are wounded, fire rescue people, is a monumental effort even on a good day, with traffic, with pedestrians in the area. We have the World Financial Center just literally across the street, which I'm sure has probably incurred some debris shattering upon it. It's a tremendous logistical, I would say at this point, challenge and nightmare for people who are trying to rescue, put out the fires that are being, I'm sure, fueled by the jet fuel as well as the interior of the building.
We now understand that the Federal Aviation Administration is shutting down all airline takeoffs nationwide. All airliners nationwide are being there will be no more takeoffs, and I imagine that the planes that are in the air right now are going to be diverted to the closest airport as soon as possible, because in a situation like this, the authorities don't know where the next one might come from, the next rogue aircraft. We have seen the World Trade Center, both towers hit by jetliners. We've seen the Pentagon apparently hit by a jetliner. Authorities want to take every precaution they can, and so all aircraft takeoffs nationwide have been stopped.
You've got to think that that is an indication one would suspect that this was a hijacking, or at least one of them was a hijacking, because that would indicate that they don't know if there is another plane where it'd be coming from. And one way to prevent a repeat, whether it would be a fourth attack, if that's indeed what happened out at the Pentagon.
Well, and we are looking at pictures of the Pentagon area now, Eric, and it's quite clear from the smoke cloud that some enormous explosion hit there.
Would the Pentagon be protected by anti-aircraft missiles such as are at the White House, believed to be at the White House roof? Perhaps this plane, that if it was a plane at the Pentagon, was heading toward the Pentagon, could it have been shot down by our military before it got there? Because that appears to be smoke from jet fuel a little bit away from the Pentagon, not on the actual building itself, as we look at this. But let me again say the plane that I saw was heading here in Manhattan. The first plane that I believe was heading south. It was above Fifth Avenue at a low altitude, which was rare, but it is a usual jet route from planes, especially planes that are vectored down from the north, whether it be from Canada or whether it be from Boston. As Rita Cosby, our colleague, had reported, there are sources telling her that perhaps it was one of the planes was a hijacked plane from Boston.
We have witnesses at the Pentagon who say that a helicopter was near the Pentagon, and then there was an explosion. So again, folks, stay with us. This is all coming into us, breaking news. You can imagine the catastrophe that we're trying to deal with here, but clearly 3 explosions, 2 at the World Trade Center, one outside or very near the Pentagon. Molly Falconer is at one of the New York area hospitals and has some updated information on the number of injuries. Molly?
Hi, John. I'm coming to you live from downtown Manhattan, where St. Vincent's Hospital basically looks like it is under siege. There are flares out forming a block perimeter around this hospital. I've watched one victim come out of an ambulance, go in on a stretcher. They look exceedingly injured, and right now there are hospital beds lined up on the street right outside the hospital, waiting with paramedics right next to them for the waves of injuries. They are obviously expecting to come in here. There's yet another one. I don't know if you can hear the sirens coming in now. New York City police officers have locked this place down with wooden barricades, more coming in on trucks right now. I'm watching lit flares get put in the asphalt here. There are hundreds of people lined up all around this hospital, and lines of people trying to get on payphones and hard lines just to get out to call into the hospital or call their loved ones. Nothing works down here. Our cell phones are down. All we can watch now are just the sirens and the paramedics on standby. The entire hospital staff.
All right, we have lost Molly Falconer's connection. That would not be unusual given the fact that the World Trade Center is a hub of communications in this city, as well as being a nationwide financial link. Folks, it just bears repeating here. This is a tremendous tragedy, yes, but we are still the most powerful nation on earth. We perhaps will one day find who is responsible, and appropriate steps will be taken. They have not struck at America. They have struck at some individual places in America, but this country will go on. Let's go on to David Asman in Fox Central. David?
John, as we've mentioned before, our job right now, the job of the armed forces of the United States, is to prevent any further terrorist attack. As a result of that, not only is the city of New York in a lockdown status, all entrances to New York have been closed, all airports nationwide have been closed, but indeed the White House has been evacuated, the Pentagon, of course, having been struck by some terrorist act. We're not sure whether it was an aircraft, what kind of an aircraft, but clearly the devastation is visible on the right hand of your screen. The Pentagon is in flames, is engulfed in smoke, as is the World Trade Centers. The Sears Tower in Chicago has been evacuated. Again, no specific information about whether there was a threatened attack on that, but no one is taking chances at the moment. The White House has been threatened as well. This is a shot earlier of that second attack. You see that jet aircraft bursting into flames as it crashes into the World Trade Center within 20 minutes of the other Trade Center tower having been attacked as well. Once again, the nation, as we speak, is under lockdown. Our armed forces are taking all necessary precautions to prevent another attack. Those include closing all United States airports as a result of this attack, as you see there, one that occurred about an hour ago, and an attack in the Pentagon as well. We are a nation under lockdown, and once again, we are prepared for the worst, but we are prepared. John?
All right. David Asman, thanks very much. I want to go to our Washington managing editor, Britt Hume, who has the outlook from the nation's capital. Britt, this raises all kinds of questions about America's response, and I guess that response is not going to be immediate, is it?
Well, whether it is immediate or not, the one thing I think we are seeing, John, is this series of evacuations from various buildings around Washington. And I think it's important to say that we don't know and have no reason to believe that the White House, for example, was facing any immediate or imminent threat. The same is true on Capitol Hill, where it appears they will be evacuating the building up here soon. Nothing has happened at either of those places. Obviously, if you put yourself in the position of officials with responsibility for any of these places, the safe move, in light of what we've seen, is to evacuate places, just as the safe move was for the authorities to close the airports to keep any new planes out of the sky. So I think we have a blend here of things that have really happened, which are chilling in themselves, and things that are happening out of precaution that may or may not denote any particular threat. So it's worth keeping all that in mind. As for whether there'll be any retaliatory action by the United States, obviously that's days away, and we're, if not longer, it may be a long time before we know exactly how this was orchestrated, organized, by whom, and so on. This, of course, though, John, I think this is one of these days where we can say that things will not again be the same in the United States of America. This is the kind of terrorist attack that is the nightmare that experts and others have warned about, but some of us may have thought really could not happen on such a scale. This is quite remarkable.
It is that. Britt Hume in Washington, thanks very much. And I think when the investigation is all over, we will find that this was perhaps somewhat easy to pull off, but that is yet to come. Jim Angle is joining us now from Washington. Jim, what can you tell us about that fire outside the Pentagon? Jim Angle, are you with us?
I can tell you first that the roads around the White House, the streets around the White House, were blocked seconds ago. Members of the Uniform Division of the Secret Service ran out to intersections and started diverting traffic. There are emergency vehicles on almost every block around the White House. The road south of the White House has also been blocked. And as you know, the White House is being evacuated. Federal employees are standing on the street corners in and around the White House, having left the building for fear of another attack. As you come into Washington from Virginia, about 2 miles from the Pentagon, you can see the smoke billowing up from the building. Huge clouds of smoke. So much so that commuters coming into town have pulled over to the side of a busy freeway, what is ordinarily a busy freeway, and are sitting, watching in amazement as the symbol of the United States Defense Establishment goes up in smoke. So there is an amazement all over Washington. People are not sure what to think. You've got a lot of federal employees standing around in this area watching as the streets are blocked off and emergency vehicles rush.
Hey, reference at Delta 1989. Cleveland talked to them. They talked to the pilot. He's not declaring emergency, but they're going ahead. Hijack. They're going to go ahead and land him at Cleveland for precautionary measures.
He's not a hijack?
No.
What kind of plane or helicopter is involved in that Pentagon incident?
I do not, but I can tell you, whatever it is, it caused substantial damage and fire. I can't tell you how large the smoke plumes are coming from the Pentagon.
Folks, Jim, let me interrupt you. We're looking at live pictures of the World Trade Center literally starting to crumble. It is falling apart as we watch these pictures live. The World Trade Center, 110 stories, literally starting to fall. Bill Daley, let me bring you into the conversation. I know this was the goal of the terrorist strike back in 1993.
John, it was, and they thought they could do it by putting charges down in the basement and damaging the understructure. As much as these buildings were built to withstand a certain large hit, including some aircraft, apparently the structural integrity appears, from what we can see here, to be faltering to some degree.
They were not designed, perhaps, to take a direct strike from something the size of a 737 or perhaps an Airbus, perhaps fully loaded with fuel. Steel will melt, and that. All right, David Lee Miller is still with us. David, what can you tell us? David Lee Miller, can you tell us what happened there? All right, David Lee Miller, who has seen his share of horrors around the world in trouble spots in the Middle East and elsewhere, is in that area reporting on what we think we can see. I want to stress it's tough to...
Hello?
Yeah, David Lee, what can you tell us?
John, the scene is horrific. One of the two towers literally collapsed. I was making my way to the foot of the World Trade Center. Suddenly, while talking to an officer who was questioning me about my press credentials, we heard a very loud blast, an explosion. We looked up, and the building literally began to collapse before us. There was debris falling, I'd say, at least three-quarters the height of the building. People within the entire perimeter began literally, including myself, which is why I'm out of breath, to run for our lives. And I am now standing in a black cloud of smoke left over from the debris. There's soot. It's difficult to breathe. People ran into nearby office buildings once they got out of the danger zone just to be able to breathe. I'm on a payphone on the street right now, and I literally cannot see more than a quarter block away. That's how thick the smoke is. I'm on Murray Street and West Broadway, for those who know Lower Manhattan. Not clear now is why this explosion took place. Was it because of the planes that two planes dual attacks this morning, or was there some other attack which there has been talk of here on the street? But I can tell you this, that the police have moved people back, and it's going to be a long time.
Yeah, David, we are looking at the replay of what happened that you're describing. It happened just moments ago. It sure appears that the building simply collapsed.
Hello?
Yeah, David, if you're still with us, please keep on the line. It appears that the building simply collapsed of its own weight, that there was so much damage from the heat of the fire. As I said, steel will melt. The second, that was the building that...
Indy Center.
Hi, Huntress ID calling. I wanted to give you a heads up on the Delta Airlines 1989er that was in Cleveland Center's AOR. He was giving you the information that he was a hijacked aircraft. He is not a hijacked aircraft. He's taken precautionary measures, and he's landing at Cleveland Center. However, we do have 4 fighters launched on that aircraft, just to be sure.
At a point where there is much more weight on top of it, and those steel girders, strong as they are, had a lot of weight to support, and apparently, I'm not a structural engineer, but I'm just guessing now that they gave way. The loss of life here is going to be enormous.
May God help those who are there, and the victims and their families, and all the souls that are lost today.
I think it's safe to say that virtually every family in America is going to be touched by this disaster.